Hey guys, welcome to the Not That I'm Anywhere podcast. My name is Nathaniel Kapanos, and today my guest is going to be Henry Ramos. I'm super stoked to have him on. He's a good friend of mine. He's a lawyer in downtown Orlando and a partner in his law firm, actually. He was a regular at one of the bars that I used to work at. He's a dope dude, and he has a lot of interesting opinions on religion, on art, music, things like that. And I think that he ended up asking me more questions than I was actually asking him, but it was a really fun conversation. I didn't realize how funny he was. We were laughing the whole time. And it was actually the third podcast I had done in like an entire list of podcasts for the day. So this was the last podcast I did when I was up in Orlando. I did 3 in one day because I'm a crazy person. But anyway, we get a little bit of philosophical at the end. There's some technical issues with the mics that I didn't even realize was going on. First day doing it, so give me a little bit of slack, but I think the convo is good. I think it warrants being listened to. There's an awesome section of this, a really juicy story that I couldn't really tell that's going to be on the Patreon, so if you want to listen to that, just go ahead and sign up for the Patreon and help your boy out. I'll be traveling and doing cooler, better stuff with the podcast, and maybe I'll be able to make some fun videos and shit, like depending on what you guys are interested in. So so today's guest, Henry Ramos, super stoked about it. Listen, like, subscribe. There's a bunch of clips up as well. Liking and subscribing really helps out. So guys, just go ahead and click on like or follow on a couple of these videos or subscribe or whatever. It definitely helps the channel out. I know this is like the second one that I've uploaded, so thank you guys so much. Here's the pod. Okay, welcome to the Not That I'm Anywhere podcast. My name is Nathaniel Kapanos, and today I have a close friend of mine, and hopefully the most boring guest that we have, and we'll never have him back, according to him.
There's no doubt that that's true.
Ramos.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the podcast, my friend.
You're welcome. Cheers. I'm happy to be here.
A virtual cheers?
A virtual cheers, yeah. Well, COVID, we're very compliant here.
We're 6 feet apart.
Yeah, so it's a very health conscious. I appreciate that from you.
I feel comfortable. I do. I feel safe. Do you feel safe and validating yourself?
I do. I feel incredibly safe. I was a little petrified before, but yeah.
In your own office.
In my own office, yeah. Well, conference room, but yeah.
Nothing is sacred.
No, nothing. No. I do think that it should be. It's important for the record that this is. When you say, "Hey, will you be a guest on my podcast?" The very first thing I said is, "What?" Like, no one wants to hear what I have to say about anything, so like no one gives two shits like what I have to say. So I appreciate you humoring me by saying, no, I want you anyway, because I need to really like prop up my other guests. I need a low bar, and I'm the low bar guy. So
yeah, you are. I slated you last. I put you on the last.
Yeah,
slot.
I'm third in the day. It's 1:00 in the morning. Like, what's going on here? Jeez.
Yeah, we're drinking wine out of a cup. It's like I really classed it up for this.
Yeah, it's very classy. It's not.
I made other people drinks.
Not only is it you made other people drinks.
Yeah.
Here we're drinking wine from a pet store.
Yep. It's
it's pet wine.
Pet Sounds. It's an album. It's actually
in a cup from the Florida Police Chiefs Association.
This makes me feel safe as well, though. This is a very safe space.
1992.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's a good year. I'm 93 actually, so.
Oh, you're 93? Oh, well, this must have been an annual conference.
Commemorative.
Anyway, we're really hit the ground running here with entertainment, so I'm sure people have already tuned out, but that's fine. I think
so. I was going to tell you that I'm planning on using. Neil and I are actually in cahoots, and we're gonna take excerpts of this, and we're gonna get you canceled in some type of way. So.
The canceling is sure to happen.
Yeah.
I immediately called one of my friends, and I was like, here's the problem. I can't even really say what I think because, my job lends itself to like, well, I have corporate clients. I have, I gotta, I can't let the.
Well, luckily this podcast I'm not interested in politics as a whole. Conceptually, yes, and maybe like I'll tiptoe through the tulips when it comes to certain issues. But I mean, really, this podcast is I think I explained it to you when I was talking about it, but it's about the why and the how, and much more interested in those things than like I'm not going to be. I don't want to know, and I don't really care what your views on the divisive topic like abortion is. Like I could care less whether you think it's right or wrong, or that you believe in this or that. That's boring to me. It's a boring part of culture that it's very important, but I get bored because of how often people talk about like this is right, this is wrong. I'm much more. If you think that, like, let's just say you think abortion's wrong, I'm so interested in, and it's much more beneficial and rewarding, even if I disagree with somebody, to find out why. Like maybe they lost a child, or maybe they can't have children, or whatever the reason is. And so, I think that's really interesting to me. I like that. I like those conversations. So you're not gonna have to. I won't.
Oh, I'm not. I wasn't gonna let that stop me anyway. But
Okay,
so
good.
that's
okay. Good.
I mean, I wasn't gonna hold back. But
so you're trying to get canceled?
No, but I think. Come on. I mean, that's a pretty awesome thing.
It is kind of cool.
He's been canceled.
It's somewhat a martyr aspect.
Yeah, right. I mean, well, you're a nonconformist. You like kind of going against the grain, so it's almost kind of a it's toot your own horn. But no, I couldn't agree more. I think that the conclusions are often boring.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on this topic? Where do you stand on this topic? Regardless of how controversial.
Yeah,
I mean, because it's so common. What is much more interesting is how you got to those conclusions. What's the why behind it? And I mean, part of my job is I've got to always be able to look at both sides. So even in discussion, whatever you want to talk about, I don't care. But like we can look at all the angles. That's way more interesting than like, let me dig in to this conclusion and die on this hill.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can say that could persuade me otherwise. That's just no fun. It's also not how people work in everyday life. I mean, you don't sit there and enter into a conversation, in the coffee shop or the bar or the gym or wherever you are, ready to dig in and defend your position. That's not how it works,
Right, certainly not. Yeah, no, it isn't. And no one is as idealistic as they might purport themselves to be. There's so much gray area within everyone's lives. I always like to bring up superstitions. Everyone has people. Sometimes people don't want to step on cracks. Sometimes they don't want to walk in front of a black cat, or there's a ladder, or whatever, or the 13th floor, or this thing is haunted, or whatever. There's all these little superstitions that and they might be silly or small, or they might and maybe you just do it because you're like, well, I don't know, I've always done it. But every one of us does something like that. That's like you might even know that it's stupid or that it's not logical, but you still kind of do it. You know what I mean? And maybe it's an OCD thing that you don't want to step on cracks, or maybe you touch door handles or whatever it is. But like we all do little idiosyncrasies like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Knock on wood.
So yeah, I mean everybody has. What are yours? Have you already done this? I'm third in line. I'm third in the podcast, so I'm trying not to regurgitate material here.
The soapbox of the podcast and the why and the how has been regurgitated a few times, so I'll probably chop and screw that. But my I don't know what mine are. I don't know.
You don't know. You just brought up the superstition topic. You've got no prepared material. You're the host. What's happening here?
I don't have that many superstitions. I'm just interested in other people's superstitions. Let's see. I do a few things.
Well, you got to. All right. So
I don't believe in ghosts.
Let me ask some leading questions.
Yeah,
all right.
Sure.
So you've been a performer in your life. I'm using that term loosely, but certainly in your job tending bar, there's a performance quality there.
I've DJ'd.
Right. You've DJ'd, right? And I mean, I guess other musical elements, but maybe that you could put that in the DJ category. So certainly as a performer, most people, I could speak from my own experience in another life, but there are certain elements of pre-show routines or superstitions that belie that kind of, performance quality. I mean, were there things that you would do to prepare that you would kind of consider superstitious?
There's a few things. When I used to compete in sports, this is a very common.
Yeah, that's
trope.
the comment, right?
This is
okay.
very common.
Sports, sure.
The sports one is there's a few.
Have you give your resume? Give your sports resume.
When I was a competitive, prospectively competitive collegiate athlete. I had a scholarship to run track and cross country, cross country and then track if it went well in college, and then I lost it because I got sick. But when I was competing at that higher level, you're not supposed to have sex before the meet. Definitely
because it diminishes your testosterone. Is that this is like the boxing kind of thing, right?
It also
because you're less of a man afterwards. Is that how it works?
It is, yeah. Because you have post nut clarity. You're like, why am I running?
Hold on, what? Post nut clarity.
Yeah.
Wow, I've never heard that term.
Okay, so
is this like a known term? I don't know a lot of things in pop culture, so that's.
Peanut gallery says.
I've never heard of
that. Oh.
Post nut clarity. But see, that sounds post nut clarity. That seems like a good thing to me.
It is.
Because now your mind is. I mean, that I can identify with that. Like,
there's a
I'm a
female
little
comedian-
I'm a little foggy. You
There's a
know.
female comedian that says that post-nut clarity is like obviously you finish and you're like, ooh, shouldn't have done that.
Oh, you think you're weighed down by guilt?
Yeah, you're like, maybe I desperately had sex with this person, or you're sitting there and you're like,
The guilt makes you slower. It's weighing you down.
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
Yeah. Well, what they tell you, they don't tell you this when you're in sports and you have like a trainer who you're paying and they have a lot riding on you. Not maybe necessarily like monetarily, but like they spend a lot of fucking time with you. Like,
sure. Yeah.
They're like, I'm not wasting this time. So that the heat is on.
We'll call it time equity.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And in that case, they say that you don't have the same drive and that you're not your mind's not going to be on the right things if you do that, which basically is saying that you're gonna be like, yeah, you're gonna have the motivation is what they tell you.
Interesting.
Yeah. So then there's a female comedian. So that she said that if there's post-nut clarity, that presupposes that there's pre-nut disillusionment or whatever.
Sure.
Whatever the term is.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny because post-nut clarity is like a meme. Basically.
Let me tell you, this is going to really be injected into my vernacular now. Pre-nut and post-nut.
Yeah.
These are two different states of mind.
They very much are. We all.
I mean, I think that most people have kind of an understanding that that's probably true. I don't know that anyone's ever given it any thought, but this makes sense to me. But the wording is weird. Post-nut clarity. That to me is like you're like intellectually sharper because you don't have this distraction in your mind. You don't have like a sexual urge or desire or distraction in your mind, and so now you're clear. This is the old. You're not a Seinfeld guy, but the George Costanza. Are you like it? I incidentally won a Seinfeld trivia recently.
I am not that much of a Seinfeld.
Oh no, dominated the Seinfeld trivia.
I rewatched the series. Recently.
I don't want to. Yeah, there's no trophy involved, but I did get a gift certificate. So, but it reminds me of the old George Costanza, like when he stopped having sex and he was just like. He was brilliant. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
he was like a genius.
Yeah, he was a genius, and like Elaine reversed, she became him because she. Anyway, but
she's a slack job.
But that makes sense. But so you got the post-nut clarity, but the clarity also doesn't give you the drive, doesn't give you that kind of like the guttural animus that you need to compete.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So
yeah, it's almost like the literal term like that people will take and use when you do something and you kind of exert all your energy before the actual important part, before the climax.
You're spent.
You blow your load.
Yeah.
I mean, I use it a lot to dramatic effect because it's something that is a very visceral reaction within people's brains.
It's great phrasing.
Like,
it is incredibly great.
It's great because you use it in benign conversation. Where
Oh,
you're
sure.
Like, oh yeah, but like we don't want to go there. We don't want to go to this place first because if we're going to Rabbit's Pig tomorrow.
Yeah.
But like if we go to we don't want to go and drink beforehand because we do blow our load somewhere else. So
right.
we want to go to Rabbit's Pig and enjoy ourselves.
Well, you want to save it up.
And so I think it's all interconnected.
It is. Well, I mean, like the anticipation.
Yeah.
And that's part of it, right? But so okay. So would you count that as a superstition, not having sex before the meet or whatever? Okay.
I also think I didn't adhere to that strictly when I was competing in the bartending world. When I would do like world class or anything like that, I did not.
Interesting.
I did not do that. I mean, sometimes if I was really freaking out about it, but basically what I realized is that when you're doing it by yourself, it's even if people are helping you.
Yeah.
It's all on you. So if you practice, you're good. You got it. Like you're gonna either win or not. You know what I mean? Like either you put your best foot forward or some crazy mistake happens. But if you practice, you really won't make that many mistakes when it's just you. When you're a solo act. So I didn't practice that there. I have my advice that I give when I tell people about competitions, specifically bartending, but any kind of competition, is I say, do not. Like, if the competition, do not drink coffee within, 4 hours of the competition. Or at all. I don't drink it at all during the day if I have to compete. And I drink a lot of coffee, so it's not something that, really stimulates me to a crazy degree. But any kind of extra stimulant in there is going to add anxiety and it's going to make you shaky, loose. Not loose. It's going to make you shaky and tight.
Well, you got that natural, whether you call it adrenaline or what focus, whatever it is, that natural pre-competition.
For sure.
Yeah.
So
that's built up.
Even if you're seasoned, you still get it.
Oh, sure. One of my favorite stories, well, story is a loose term, but like Frank Sinatra used to always talk about how, this is later in his career, you know, I'm a big Sinatra guy. I'm an old man, basically, is really what it comes down to. But,
Sinatra.
you know, so, but he would always talk to, you know, people would ask him, like, I mean, you've been doing this for, you know, 73 years. Like, what, you know, how do you ever get nervous? Like, is this just old hat? And he's like, I get nervous every time. He was like, if I didn't get nervous, I would be worried, you know, because then I know I'm done. You know, because if you don't have that, I don't care how many times you've done it, when you're walking on stage or where you're going to compete, whether it's running, whether it's bartending, you need that healthy, you know, nervousness or anticipation or whatever it is. You don't really need, you know, a little extra injection of coffee in your life to get you going.
Definitely not. And I think that, you know, in bartending, you have to be so precise with your movements, like, and that's what's being judged a lot of the time. And everyone gets the shakes. I'm not a person who has ever had a problem. And you'll get nervous, of course.
Sure.
But I never had a problem talking or performing in front of people in any type of way. And so, like, it doesn't bug me at all. But I remember I was so, and this is another good term that's I guess we're just pulling all the good terms. I was cocksure that
cocksure. That's it. Well, that I've heard that one. That's not.
One.
That's an obscure. Yeah, that's well grounded. That's a bedrock term right there.
Is.
Yeah, cocksure.
But I was so cocksure, and my hubris did not allow me to think that I would be nervous because I've performed, I've competed, I've done this. I know
sure.
what I'm doing.
Yeah. You know.
I've ran races. I mean, you have the nerves, but those nerves, like you said, those nerves are actually, especially when you're seasoned, you know the nerves are good. You're like,
you need them.
You feel it, like, because otherwise you're not going to jump. You know, you're going to be standing.
It's true.
The ledge.
Yeah. No.
So
I mean, I don't know. For me, those nerves would always play themselves. There would be a certain precision that you, an execution
you
that
can never do it without them.
Yeah, exactly. But hopefully, it's so built up in your muscle memory that it's really just enhanced. It's like you're really in the. I never ever once was in the zone. Anything, whether it was sports or whether it was theater or whether it was going into a hearing for court. Now I'm never ever felt like in the zone if I didn't have that nervous energy. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So
I think that the nervous energy too is something that like you need to call upon it, but it's also like that's why you need the muscle memory. That's why you need to practice so much, because you're not thinking so much about about the big movements. You're thinking about the little precise things, and you're so hyper focused on everything you're doing and how you sound and all these little things that when
you're hyper aware.
Which is not good for the big part.
It's true. You want to feel natural. You don't want to be monitoring yourself. That's the old, going back to the old acting days. In the old acting, what we do, you don't want to self-monitor, because once you're, once you're
bad.
Oh God, it's just terrible. It's robotic. It's contrived. It's just not natural.
There's one. So in the competitive bartending realm, which is an interestingly fierce group of people, you can tell when when you get to a certain level, everyone practices a lot.
Sure.
You have to, because you don't want to be thinking about, like I said, you don't want to be thinking about those things. All the other things, you want to be going through the motions.
No.
It's all the little extra razzle dazzle that you're going to put on it that you have to be like really focusing on. Like a gymnast that's like she can do all the flips. It's that last stick that she has to land.
Right.
That's what you're looking for. And you can tell though when someone's practiced their thing so much and they just love the way they sound, and they're just sucking their own dick up on stage, and no one likes to see that. And you can tell.
Well, no one. Well, come on. Anyway,
they love it.
You speak in such broad terms.
I know. Anyway. Many people, no competitor that's competing against you likes that. You're like, what a fucking piece of shit.
Well, because that would be pretty impressive while you're making a drink. I mean, if you can pull that kind of flexibility out, I
I know.
That's degree of difficulty alone is huge.
I gotta give them points for that.
Exactly.
I mean, the drink was terrible, but
oh my God, I mean, did you see that stretch? Jeez. I mean, and he didn't even have much to work with, so he really had to get down there. So I mean, come on.
The last guy
the last guy didn't even have to stretch much. He was just naturally gifted, so did most of the work for him. But
I like an underdog.
I'm glad that you've established we're doing a very classy discussion here, because I was going to ask you, because I got some questions for you as we're talking about the nerves. You want the classy questions, or you want the less classy question first?
Let's go classy, then trashy.
All right.
That's
Well,
usually how I roll.
let's go downhill.
Yeah, that's usually
all right. So, because I kind of want to dig into this. Is it okay if I ask you some
By
of these?
all
Because I'm
means.
fat. I've always been outside of this.
It's an open book.
Yeah, outside of this, I've always actually we've never talked about this. I've always wanted to ask you about what your preparation was like for these world-class competitions, because so the old Nick Saban quote, you know who Nick Saban is, right? This is, I don't know, college football, right? So his old quote is, you don't practice, to be good, or you don't practice to be great. You practice, or you don't practice something enough to get it right. You practice it so much that you can't get it wrong. You know what I mean? And that's a certain level of focus and precision. I mean, really, that it's so ingrained in your muscle memory and your hippocampus or whatever it is that it is you almost can't mess it up unless you're trying, or unless there's some extraneous figure, or a factor. So how do you get to that point? So what is that like for you? So quick example. So like for me, if I'm doing an argument or an opening or closing or something like that, I would do, and this is from my acting training, you don't just memorize something, right? You speed through it, right? So you have to be able to do let's call it like a minute monologue or argument or whatever the hell it is, right? So not only do you memorize it until you're comfortable, but you speed through it. Like I can do that in the shower, I can do it while I'm walking, but I can speed through those lines, for lack of a better term or whatever, to the point where it's just rote. But that's the level of memorization that I would go through, or if it's not memorized, at least understand what my outline is. So my question to you is, how does that manifest itself in the drink making and performing realm? Because you're not reciting lines, but you are engaged in a certain level of choreography there.
1,000%. So you do. There's two things. So there's an action, of course, which with especially with like theater acting, I'm sure that there was plenty of like physical like cues and things that you kind of had to do. Whether or not obviously you were purely acting like you had a sword, but like I'm sure there's like emotive things that you wanted to be in line with what you're saying. So that's very similar to what you would do. You would practice what you had to say. So basically, making the drinks, what you're saying, whatever, you have to do it in like if you have 6 minutes, you have to do it when you're practicing in 4, because you will no doubt take more time. You will. Something will happen, or you'll think of a funny story and you're like, I'm going to explain this more, and it might hit, but it doesn't matter. You're going to take more time, and if you have extra time, in a competition, you absolutely fill that extra time with something, because finishing too quick is you get automatically marked off. Like, well, they didn't use all their time. If you finish with 2 minutes left, it's like it's too good. It's too polished.
Well, you never want to finish too quick.
Right.
Well, it's in life. I mean, let's just be clear.
Right.
But that's great information, because there's going to be like 4 people that are going to listen to this. But
you practice it while you're in the car. Like, you practice a speech while you're in the car. Over.
Why are you milking a cow right now?
You practice it while you're milking cows.
Is that what was it? No, but seriously, what is this move? What were you? Oh, you were driving a vehicle.
Driving a car.
I see. Because you drive with 2 hands at 10 and 2. That's what you do.
Like this.
That's apparently how he drives a car. So that's interesting, because I'm sure people, of the 4 people that will listen to this,
Probably all bartenders.
Yeah, no, but or maybe will have a
And
desire
Neil.
to compete. Neil's definitely Neil and Eric, but they're gonna. They said the only requirement for you to be able to use the office is that we can listen and mock you. So that's definitely coming.
Fantastic.
Anyway, so. But they're gonna be interested in that kind of information, though. It's very true, though, because you really do have to be able to accomplish it faster, because there's so many things that occur in the moment that will distract you.
There is, and that's the rule of thumb.
You're very technical here. I like you're talking and you're manipulating at the same time. That's good.
I try to keep my P's and Q's.
That's good.
Yeah, DJing, it's funny, to completely change the subject and derail this.
I like it. Derail.
Is that I was filming in Bauhaus earlier, which was so weird to
I heard you talk to Big Mike.
No.
Eric said you talked to Big Mike.
No. He's young and stupid.
Eric's a liar.
Yes, it was Pete Hanna, who is a great bartender. He's British, and I don't know if you ever met him, but he's kind of actually in the shadows. He works at the Rose and Crown at Epcot. Rose and Crown. Rose and Crown.
Okay, the Rose and Crown. Yeah.
Crown.
Yeah. Love that bar. Shout out to Epcot.
Shout out.
Do you know what Epcot stands for, by the way?
No.
Oh, this is great. So my wife,
I have
my
no
wife,
idea.
as you know, who's the peanut gallery over here,
Yes.
but she when we were first dating, she was like, are you like a theme park person? Is this, now she didn't understand that I'm a huge dork in all realms, most realms, but certainly theme parky,
That's so funny, her asking you if you're a theme park person and like
Well, 'cause she is
not ready for what was
right, because
about
she was a theme park person. I think maybe her prior relationship wasn't. There was some conflict there, whatever. So she wanted someone
some
that
good
could,
conflict.
She wants conflict is the bread of life, but she wanted someone that we could share that together. And I was like, you don't even know what you're getting into. So anyway, but so that's what I asked her. So this is like one of our first few dates or whatever, and I was like, do you know what Epcot stands for? And she's like, I was like, well, how can you even call? Who do you think you are? Like, anyway, but so you don't know what Epcot stands for?
I don't.
Epcot is the experimental prototype community of tomorrow.
I think I've heard
Useless
that.
knowledge,
I think
but
I've heard that
that's
before
what's
in the park. It's
Yeah,
coming.
maybe. Sliding wine. I should have slid this. Thank you. Anyway, so yeah. Oh, here, ladies first. But yeah. So I'm not an expert pour. Like you guys let what you twist? Is that a move?
That's a move.
Oh, I twisted. Is that a fine?
Two fingers.
I don't even profess to know what I'm doing. When we go to dinner, when you go on a date, when you go to dinner, do you take charge of the wine situation?
Yes.
That's your.
1,000,000% yes.
Of course you do. So when we go to dinner.
I mean, if I'm dating somebody in the industry, it's different. I'm much more. I'll still definitely take control, but I've been on dates with people that know more about wine than me, and they might be going through some stuff or whatever. I still have an opinion, not because I think like, oh, I know best, because that's even better. Because I'm like, oh, you know a lot about wine. Here's what I was thinking. You can choose it, but like I was thinking these 2 or 3, like blah blah, whatever you think.
Yeah.
And if they pick those, I don't even care. But 9 times out of 10, that's not the instance. It's not the case. I try not to date in the industry like directly too much.
Well, what's the phrase? You don't shit where you eat.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the thing is you're going to shit where you eat at some point.
Everybody does.
So if you can avoid it at any point, that's good.
I don't know anyone that's not guilty of that.
Yes.
Guilty as charged. Yeah, but it's.
So yeah, I definitely take charge. It's just easier. And also, oftentimes,
you say it's easier? It's easier because you don't trust?
Definitely not.
Oh, see, it's interesting because we do the exact opposite. I defer. I'm a big deferrer when it comes. Well, because she's in the field, so I don't know what I'm doing. So I also just love. Now, I guess maybe you know what you're doing. She knows what you do. So maybe it makes sense. But I love
it's a job.
All the show, the fake choreography that they do with the wine where they
I like it.
present it to you with the label. There's a little Vanna White flourish, and then you got to sniff it. You got to pretend like you know what you're doing. I don't like pretending.
It might be one of the gayer parts about me, but I love all of that. Like,
oh yeah,
and I mean that in a totally like the show and like the wine and like all these like crazy terms and like
that was an excellent flourish too.
Yeah,
that was good.
I love a good flourish, especially when it's presenting wine.
I mean, so many people underestimate the flourish. It's
a good move.
Showmanship is everything.
Yes.
And I don't care. They underestimate how much they perform or performance is needed, but showmanship is huge there.
I think that life is a performance.
Yeah. Life is a performance. I mean, is it?
I think so, because you add little. I treat it that way. I add I add the spice and little flourishes or little weird sayings or things like that. And I think that it makes life more interesting. And I live my life that way. I really do.
But not fake. I mean, because a lot of people would associate the term performance with a certain level of lack of genuineness.
Yeah, I feel like
fakeness.
I feel like maybe entertaining is a better way.
Well, that I totally agree with that. That's entertainment always.
Yeah, I think it's when you're in the setting, like when you're sitting with other people.
Yeah.
Obviously, like if you're at home with your significant other, I mean, that's a totally different like it's definitely entertaining, but like, sometimes you're like annoying to be entertaining, or you're
I'm annoying all the time.
Right,
I'm always
right.
working on material.
Right.
I'm not even
To be more annoying, yeah.
Like I'm not anything. I'm not any kind of anything. But
Yeah.
I'm always like, what do you think of this? This could be a bit. I don't even need bits. I don't. For what purpose? And they're never good. And she's always annoyed.
I wrote down one that I think that you would think is funny. I write down most of my definitely borderline insane, and people say that, but
They
they don't.
like a notebook, like a diary
Google
of
Keep.
bits.
Google Keep. It's
Oh, on the phone.
I write all kinds of things in there, but sometimes it's bits. Sometimes it's just funny ideas.
I
Sometimes
love
it's,
it. Lay it on me. What do you give me a good bit here?
It's just a name. It's a name for a character that I think would be funny.
Oh, this is how it starts.
And it's
Yeah.
I thought of it the other day, and it's not that good, but
Let me tell you,
I thought it was funny.
Let me say, earlier you said, I think this is the gayest thing about me. We've already surpassed that. So here we are. This is much gayer.
Very good.
Which is fine. I mean,
I love it.
My father's gay.
Yeah. My best friend is gay. It's just a
I
character.
have many gay friends. Anyway.
So it's George S.J.W. Bush. Should be a good character. His blue hair. I mean, there's a lot to go. There's a lot of meat on
That's
them bones.
good, yeah.
I think.
Yeah. He goes to dinner at 4:30.
Yes.
Yeah. I
Yes.
like it. Yeah.
He talks in that like Texas accent. I wish I could do. I try to think of the Will Ferrell one, and he's like,
Yeah, I don't. Is he Will Ferrell? Is he really doing accents? He really leans into the like.
yeah,
That
it's
kind
the
of
laugh.
like.
It's good though.
Yeah, it works.
It does work, but like basically he's just like talking about like
Didn't he do
the
like
patriarchy. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but like in the dumb, like kind of like goofy George W.
yeah.
Bush way.
Fool me once, can't fool me again.
Yeah. And he's talking about how like he was at a bathhouse and he had gay sex by mistake and like like or whatever. Like he's a polyamorous person.
Sure.
George S.J.W. Bush.
Yeah, SJW.
It's a great character.
So that's all right. So, but that's the foundation. That's how bits start. That's the foundation
I
of
think it
a
could be
bit.
good. Yeah. Anyway, so
How do you feel about this? Is this something? This is not any fleshed out in any way, but I'm fascinated by language, right? By words, as I think you are to some extent.
certainly.
I'm fascinated by words that are supposed to have dual use, but really only get one angle of play, for lack of a better term, right? So here's like uncouth, right? Or nonchalant. Never once in my life have I heard someone say, that was very chalant. I've never heard it, ever. But it has to be usable.
It has
right?
to be.
Same thing with couth.
Because that's a compound.
No one's ever been couth.
No.
Ever. Or chalant.
No.
And so, but I feel like there's
I might have
something
been
there.
that way without knowing it.
Yeah, if this was in the hands of a better writer or a funnier person,
right.
I feel like there's something there, though, right?
There's something there.
There's a foundation of a bit there.
There is a bit
right?
there.
Yeah, just the word chalant.
You know what would be
is
good
funny.
is if the synthesis of that was that they met a woman named Chalant, and they're like,
Well, was she black?
probably, right?
I could say. I mean,
Yeah, and so they meet a woman named Chalant, and it's like, and she's like they go into like a laundromat or something. And it's Chalant, and it's like Chalant.
that would be a great
And it's like
black
it-
lady name.
Yeah,
I would
it's a good name.
Be attracted to like chalant.
I think so.
No
Chalant.
offense. Anyways,
Our producer's getting pissed. We gotta
chalant.
Chalant. That's
Okay,
nice.
yeah, that's a good name.
So
Yeah.
what would being chalant mean?
Well, all right. So to be nonchalant is like you're kind of
Yeah.
aloof,
Right.
You know, it's like
So, but being
like,
chalant means you
look
were
at that.
invested?
He was so nonchalant, like the way he just,
Right.
you know.
So how heavy is it
walked
though?
up there.
How heavy is
How heavy is it to be
is
chalant?
chalant? Like
Well,
is
it's
it
like
is it
you're
so
overbearing? You're
Right.
just like
You're
oh
too
my
much
God,
that way.
You see him? He just was so chalant.
He's so chalant.
Like he's just a try hard.
Oh, and in the bit, the woman is nonchalant, and she's being very aloof.
The irony,
but her
of
name
you're
is
like,
chalant,
She is chalant,
and you're like, you're nonchalant.
You're like, yeah. It's like, oh, you know, this is chalant, and you know, and she's just like, whatever. You know, she's so
yeah,
nonchalant.
that's good. That's
Yeah,
good
yeah.
because comedy's all about misdirection, right?
Misdirection
Oftentimes,
is key.
oftentimes.
Yeah, misdirection is key. I like that. Yeah.
I think there was I love watching crowd work, which is not necessarily misdirection, but that's how you win crowd work. The comedian, oftentimes, unless you're like Sam Morrill or something, who is just like quick and mean. Morrill. Thank you.
He may watch you. I don't know.
Yeah, love you.
Are you a big Sam Morrill fan?
I like. Yeah. I am. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
I watch his comedy quite a bit.
Good.
He's good. If you watch him in a roast, he roasts the judges. Like he roasts everybody. He's
too. We're talking about random comedians. I feel like he's too like handsome to be a good comedian.
Really?
Is it? Maybe I'm speaking of gay.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. He's first of all, he's masculine, right? He's like kind of a handsome guy. As comedians go, let's be clear. He's not in.
I don't think he's particularly handsome.
He's not in the Top Gun beach scene or something like that.
No.
But he's. Oh, female says no, not handsome. But he's got the deep.
Survey says.
Doesn't he have, he's got the deep voice.
I agree. He's
got
masculine,
that kinda
but I don't think he's
raspy,
handsome though. I don't think he's I don't think he's an ugly guy. I just don't think
Maybe I'm
he's
just going by comedian standards, like compared to Rodney Dangerfield.
true.
I mean, come
but
on.
I think that that's
incidentally,
a weird
I'm not
comparison.
a huge Sam Morrill fan, but he does a fantastic Rodney Dangerfield.
He does.
He spot on.
It's very
Kudos
good
to him. Yeah, but
I think that Mark Norman's comedy is closer to Rodney Dangerfield's comedy, which is a weird comparison. I know that they're very close. They're close friends, and
they're nothing alike.
Rodney Dangerfield. You don't think anything?
And Mark Norman?
I think that there's a
first
similarity.
Of all, I'm a huge Mark Norman queef.
I
love Mark Norman. I think
there's a similarity in the delivery.
Rodney Dangerfield?
I think there's a similarity. I didn't say they're the same. I said there's a similarity. Sam Morrill,
I'll give you this.
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the
density,
rhythm. The rhythm.
Density of the jokes. Like Mark Norman, his brilliance. I mean,
they're thinkers.
To me, it's Jerry Seinfeld. Mark Norman's number 2 to me. But like the amount of jokes that he can fit into a limited amount of time. It's like bang, 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 bang.
That's
bang.
what I mean.
Yeah. So that is a Rodney Dangerfield.
I don't think that
Rodney Dangerfield did the same thing there. Yeah.
Yes, it's like when you listen to him, it's like you have to sit there and be like, wait, and he's like referencing a joke he made 5 seconds ago, but it's like there's like 3 other jokes, and it's like, what's going on here? Very rapid fire.
It's rapid fire comedy,
and he pauses to wait for people.
So hard.
Yeah, it's very hard
because of the writing. I mean, it's to have all those layers of. But Rodney Dangerfield was more like one-liner style.
No, yeah.
Really do callbacks. He wasn't like
no.
There wasn't nuance where you were doing a layer of jokes and then there's like 7 jokes within this one topic. Dangerfield was just. Don't get me wrong. I love Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, one of my favorite movies is Back. Have you ever seen Back to School?
Of course.
Back to School.
Many times.
Back to School is so good, and they do that.
It's just
they do
zingers.
that commercial at the beginning because he owns the tall and fat store.
Yeah.
If you want to look thin, hang out with fat people. Yeah. It's just like I love it. It's
I love that movie because it's just zingers from him. The whole it's nonstop zinger from Rodney Dangerfield. He's basically doing his act just with all the characters.
Yeah.
It's
Robert
great.
Downey Jr. in that movie.
Yeah,
and he's very good in that movie. Actually, oddly enough.
Oh man, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's good times.
Yeah.
Back to School. Watch it.
Back to School is a good movie.
So what you got here? You prepare any topics here? Well, I didn't even get into my unclassy comment, but
you didn't.
But it's fine.
Okay. I kind of want to hear it now, but
well, it was back onto the nervousness, the superstition. So around here, I don't want to name names or anything like that, but we talk about sometimes I hit your screen here. Did I mess something up?
No.
Okay. And again, sometimes they're important, sometimes they're not. But whatever, you got a hearing. It's like doing a performance or doing a show, whatever. You got a hearing, and you get the nervousness, which we talked about as being good. But every now and then you get to throw another term in there. We've got pre, post, nut. What was the other term you had? Cocksure.
Cocksure.
How about the fear dump?
Ooh.
You ever had You ever get the fear dump?
Definitely.
Yeah, it's just you can't avoid it. You got it.
It's the most unpleasant dump. Well, not the most, but it's up there.
That's definitely not true.
I mean, it's up there.
I really don't want to go too far down the rails here.
No, but I mean,
much
other than being sick.
Sure, yeah.
Other than being sick, it's up there on unpleasantries.
Yeah. Okay.
But once you get it over with,
well,
you have post-dump clarity.
Very good. That's a good callback. Very good. Post-dump clarity.
And you're like, man, thank God I got that out of me.
That's good. Yeah. And then, but but it makes you better instead of making you worse, because nobody wants to hold that in.
Exactly.
You may hold your load in to give you a competitive advantage, but you can't hold that in.
That does not give you a competitive advantage.
You got to extricate that situation.
That's pretty much a negative in all the categories.
Yeah, that is good. I like that. Post-dump clarity, new term.
There we go.
Here,
The memes.
it's happening.
The memes from me.
Post-dump clarity. I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna use that here. You know, that's good. That's good stuff.
I think that your colleagues. I know a few of your colleagues. I think they actually. I'm not even joking. I think
they have a sense of humor.
Yeah, I think they would actually appreciate it.
They'll appreciate that. Yeah.
So like, how boring are lawyers, like, as a whole? I've met some interesting ones, but I mean, like, let's say like we're talking like statistic majorities.
Well, all right. So a couple comments here first off the bat, right? I don't like judging people in groups. Like, I think that this dovetails into politics, like where you start, you're like, oh, like this community or this group, or like, what do they think as a group? So like, I think case by case basis, you judge people on their merits as individuals. Having said that, which just means I'm going to undo everything I just said.
To be fair,
which is interesting. I like that you don't even give a prep. You barely introduce anyone. You give no background at all. They have, again, no one cares what I have to say about anything. They may care slightly more what you have to say.
Oh, the other guests got a big background.
They got the big intro. They got the resume. The CV came out. Yeah. You probably had like clips, like B-roll of them like doing whatever their task was.
Oh yeah. And it took hours.
Yeah. So you asked me because I'm a lawyer, which we haven't really established yet, but or maybe.
Oh, I'm planning on. See, yours. I wanted to be a bit more. I want to dance a little bit.
Well, we'll tango. But what do I think about lawyers generally? Was that the question?
Well, my point is.
Or why are they so boring?
No.
So boring?
How boring are they?
Oh, so boring. And let me tell you why. Part of my issue with lawyers, like it's like I'm like a self-hating. Is
like your role model, Larry David.
Sure, but I just I don't like. I don't know. I don't love spending time with lawyers. Fortunately, my colleagues are mostly an exception to this. But
I can attest to that. I've met them
in my office.
Yeah.
In our firm, but they just have most lawyers have such a false sense of self-importance, right? And that is why they're so boring. Because like, who is more boring than a narcissist?
Right.
Like, they can't stop talking about themselves. They don't ask questions about other people. They don't have a curious mind because they're so wrapped up in their own, minutia.
Is that because though is it because of because I know that lawyers do they do work a lot. Like not all of them obviously, but I know that the workload is more than other jobs, and it requires more. It doesn't mean that you have to be like the best or the brightest. I mean, you have to have a certain IQ level, but what I mean is that like they typically do long hours and lots of work, and they're usually compensated fairly well for that. But is it because that they don't have a disconnect, or they don't have like a release?
I mean, there's certainly I think
from their world, not necessarily from their job and like the things that matter.
So where does the narcissism come in, or where does that fall? I think part of it is you go through this training. You got to go to law school. It's hard to get into law school. You go to law school. You graduate. You take the bar. You've accomplished all these hurdles that somehow I think give people a sense of importance or gravitas or whatever the case may be. And I think people, in my experience, they forget that it's still a service industry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obvious to say, oh, bartender, whatever, server, service industry. Being a lawyer, being a doctor, like any of these, like, oh, we love these are not jobs to be put on a pedestal because, oh, you're so brilliant. When I went and took the bar exam, which is a scary kind of...
No doubt.
It's scary because you go through law school, you get in all this debt. It's very hard. It really, it's quite difficult.
Right.
They
purposely.
They manipulate your mind and change the way you think about everything in your life. And then you realize, I graduated, hooray. For what? I still have to pass this bar exam, and if I don't pass it, I'm fucked. You know, I mean, like royally.
Yeah.
So, because then it was all just a waste.
Right.
So,
and you're still in debt.
so
The
you
debt is real.
Right. So you make it over those hurdles, and then you feel like, well, I've done something now. I am, Esquire. You're still. It's just a service industry. Whatever you're doing is for a client, whatever that type of client that may be. But like, you're still operating, in the service of someone else, and I think people forget that all the time. This is kind of like cheesy and like, whatever, but I believe that's true, and it bothers me that I think a lot of lawyers just feel like they're God's gift to something, and that's really not it at all. Because like when I was sitting in that bar exam, I was like, yeah, it's hard, but like, I mean, look how many schmucks are lawyers. Like, I mean, how hard can this be? I mean, there's so many schmucks out there. Like,
there are.
I have to be able to do this. Like, so and so is a lawyer. Like,
right.
Come on.
Everyone knows like a schmucky like douchebag lawyer. Like,
sure.
Everybody does.
Doesn't mean they're not smart.
No.
But like, smart doesn't
or capable enough.
Right. But smart doesn't give you a license to be, a
Certainly
douchebag.
not. Certainly not.
But yeah, but I think that's what makes them boring is that they. But again, not everybody. Case by case basis.
Oh, for sure.
Everyone has their own value, right? You don't know their story.
Definitely not.
So that's what my wife and I say to each other when we get judgy, because we're frequently judgy, and then we don't want to get too judgy, and we're like, you don't know their story. You don't know what brought them here.
Yeah, everybody does have a story.
Yeah.
How do you think that, or do you think that your previous experience in theater? Do you think that it affected or helped you in any type of way, like with your law degree? Obviously, within life it did, but like, do you think that like other than preparing, which we already touched on, for depositions or for court cases, do you think there's anything like within like the lawyer realm that like helped you with,
Yes.
or hindered you with?
Yeah. Severalfold, but primarily the skill set, right? Same skill set, different audience. That's what I always say, because people are like, "Well, you're a theater and then law school. How did that happen?" You're like, well, it's the same skill set, different art. You're a storyteller. It's
Right,
just my
right.
audience has changed, whether it's the judge or the client or a jury, whatever the case may be. You're still a storyteller.
For sure.
But that's not the most important part to me. When I went to law school, which was so foreign to me, like I could never have. I don't know, but like after
When you went to law school, and sorry to interrupt, you were what, like
interrupt this,
20
we're doing is interrupting each other.
Well,
so
I'm
it's-
gonna say sorry, and you better accept it, you son of a bitch. Be
Well,
grateful.
Stuff your sorries in a sack.
When you were when you decided to go to law school and finish your degree, I remember you told me this, and I might have been drinking on the job,
Potentially.
but where you were like in your late 20s,
I was old.
28.
I was old.
Were you 28?
28. Very good. 28. I
I
had a 6-year.
Who's married to who?
I had a 6-year gap, which most people. This is my favorite. You go to law school and they're like, "Oh, you took a break." I was like, I took a break.
That's
For
really
anyone
funny.
that's gone back to school and someone's like, "Oh, you took a break from," I'm like, no. I was like, this
not.
is a break. School is fake. This is fake news, right? This is not real life.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, have you ever
Austin,
Have you ever
a
filed your
mutual friend of ours
taxes?
would agree with you.
Yeah, I'm like, have you ever filed your taxes before? Okay.
Yeah.
You're still on a break from life.
Yeah,
So yeah, I was working, so I was 28. I go back to law school because my life fell apart, of course. I basically flipped a coin and I said, I'm either going to move to LA with my best friend and become, try to pursue film and television with him out in LA, or I'm going to go to law school. And like the only key to that was, all right, I'm only going to apply to one law school. It's, UF, go Gators. And it's, the hardest law school to get into Florida. So it's like, well, I don't know if I'm good enough to get in. So I either get in or I'm going to LA and, be a starving artist, or I shall continue to be a starving artist. But I think what I pulled, other than the skill set, I think what I pulled most was humility, right?
Right. Makes sense.
Because like, who am I? I don't know. Give me a break. This to me, I'm drinking out of a cup of wine here. That's totally. This is me, right? I don't deserve fancy wine or fancy glasses. Like, I don't come from anything.
I think it's a good perspective though, because within kind of what you're talking about with the people, the lawyers, and what makes them boring, and I think, and I'll say like something I summarized from what you said, and in my own life experience is that like
perhaps it's because they're so ingrained in their own world. And like, it is an accomplishment to, pass the bar and then be a successful lawyer and then be, partner or this or that, or have some case that makes you famous or whatever it is. And sometimes it's totally within the realm of lawyers, right? And it does make you money, and there's some status and there's some power within their own realm. But that's what makes them boring, is that it's like people don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
No one gives a shit other than other lawyers or other people that like the people that you have to interact with. Like, I need this lawyer. I want a powerful lawyer now, but like when you're not using them anymore, it's like, who was that guy?
Well, people do give a shit, oddly. I'm not saying they should, but they do. Because when I was a bellman, when I lived in New York, when I was like, lugging suitcases, into a bell cart and like showing people like, where the bathroom was in the hotel and how to use the bidet, like very few people treated me with any, hey, I tell you, it's super clear.
Ding.
But when anyone, people didn't treat you generally with a lot of respect.
Right.
I'm the same person.
Yeah.
And I'm not any smarter. I may have some
You're more experienced.
additional knowledge and like age, but I'm not any smarter than I was then. Like, I was pretty smart then, but no one treated me with any respect, because I was a bellhop, in New York City. And my last name was Ramos. So, whatever. Nobody even thinks I could speak English. And now when people hear I'm a lawyer, it's like they're like, oh, and I'm like, stop, get out of here with that. That's bullshit. That's bogus. Like, don't do that. That's a meaningless title for the purposes of putting value on someone, I guess is what I mean. And that's what I mean by that's what I took most, because when I went to law school, there were three types of people in law school. There were people that went to law school because they didn't know what else to do. They had a liberal arts degree in history or whatever the hell, and like they were like, I don't know what else to do. The job market is rough. This is circa 2008, so the economy was trash and foreclosures and all that stuff. So this is like it's such a terrible time to go to law school because people were terrified they wouldn't even get jobs. But they didn't know what else to do, so they're like, I guess I go to law school. That's one. Yeah, Number two is like pedigree. I call them pedigree, right? It's my daddy went to law school, his daddy went to law school, his daddy went to law school. Like, this is what I'm doing. This is just what I'm supposed to do.
They're a shoe-in, right?
Yeah, whatever.
They have the connections, whatever.
Again, I'm not saying these are bad people.
No.
I'm just,
I have friends that
that's fine. I mean, I get it.
Path.
Yeah. And then the third type was people kind of like me that were misfits, right? Mm-hmm. You're, which I'm fine, whatever. Be a misfit, that's fine. I was old. I was 28, which now, I mean, I look at that, I'm like, that's a baby. But I was 28, and people thought I was like, should have Walker, like with tennis balls on it. Like, it was rough. They thought I was so old at 28 years old. It was like, do your knees even work? It was crazy. And then
I used to be an actor on Broadway.
Right, it was just ridiculous.
The bathroom's over here.
It was like, no one was.
Grandpa.
Yeah, I there was a little part of me that I thought like maybe people will be impressed that like I like had a living before this.
Oh,
and let me tell you, they were not impressed.
Yeah.
It was not, but
I think from that perspective though, so what I was getting at was not just that like no one gives a shit. I mean, like, in the grander scheme of the world, not everyone gives a shit about, someone being a lawyer. And what you got to experience was, like, many people do. Many people are, like, easily impressed. I mean, people are impressed if you're wearing a suit. You could be literally nobody, have no job, and they're like, oh, this guy he's going places. You know what I mean? Yeah. But what I was kind of picking at was that I felt that, like, you had seen a different side of the world and had understood the world a bit better because you'd been in...
Because I was poor?
No. Yes, yeah. But also because you were in the artist realm, and there's a lot of different priorities, and there's a lot of rebellion against societal norms and all this other nonsense. But regardless of that, it was like you were in a realm where you're like where you were able to look at these lawyers and not be like, wow, oh my god, like that's whatever. I don't think that's the only reason why. But
I mean, there's sometimes you're wow, but I think maybe I don't know if this is what you're driving at, but yeah, I mean, I've seen really talented people, like worked with like uber talented people that I still to this day hold. I'm just floored at their level of talent. Right. So when I see someone, I'm like, you can't do 8 shows a week. Right. Like, no understudy. Like, I know what real talent is here. I mean, yeah, that's fine. You can dress up in a suit and argue. You know, that's great, and that's wonderful.
You're very smart.
You're very
right?
smart. That's good. That's
This is
wonderful.
a different
But let me tell you, real talent is like, I get up. You know, people get up 8 shows a week. They're belting out the show tunes. They're doing the tap dancing. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Smiling.
That's fucking talent. Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
real talent. You know, for no money.
Right.
You know, and being happy,
Yeah.
really, really happy doing it. But
that's exactly what I was getting at. Is that like, it doesn't discredit the other thing. It doesn't discredit that, like, being a successful lawyer. I mean, it is impressive in its own right. Passing the bar is impressive. I mean, I didn't do it, right, and I couldn't do it right now, for sure. And I don't know if I ever could, but certainly, if you put the bar in front of it, it would be intimidating to a crazy degree. So there's value within it. But I think that, like, that perspective is like, it's not just like, oh, there's other people, like, people have their that's the PC answer, right?
Sure.
Is people have their own paths and you don't ever know where they came from. And it's correct, though. It is. It is.
yeah, I feel like we've been really PC the last like little bit here, a little too boring. Like, everyone's tuned out by now.
We
yeah.
have.
Yeah. So I don't.
I think that like that's the extra perspective, though, is that, like, you know, you get to it. You didn't just see other sides of talent and other sides that you appreciated other sides of talent. You know, you understood it.
Well, it was certainly. I kind of want curious to you too about how the bartending realm. I don't know if I'm using the right terms there. Hospitality, whatever the terms
We
are.
don't just say realm.
Realm's not big in the bartending world. Like,
I mean, my D&D fan, like, in our little
Dungeons and Dragons. Is that what?
Yes.
Is that a D&D? Okay, all right.
I was trying to make you feel like a nerd for saying realm.
Realm. Yeah,
I don't play
I'm
D&D.
a huge nerd, but yeah. So in your world, your bartending, service industry, that creative world that you're in, because it's extremely creative, right? And successful. I mean, come on, you're a big guy, top 5, world class. Hey. But that's was that did that challenge any of the preconceptions you were brought up with? You know, because it's such a change for me, right? So when I got into when you say you saw another side of the world in the arts, in theater, that's very true. But not just from a talent activity standpoint. It was mostly true from a worldview standpoint, right? So not that I grew up sheltered. I didn't grow up sheltered at all, but it was, there was a lot of faith, a lot of like Judeo-Christian kind of vibes in my youth, right? Well, those were challenged in many, many ways, you know, particularly when I started getting the arts and being exposed to more creativity, different, types of people, different lifestyles. And that was probably the most valuable part of those experiences, because I got to really, I don't want to say test my worldview, but certainly that's part of it. It got to be exposed to more things. And so I guess that's my question regarding the creative world of bartending and service. Is there a similar bent there? Or maybe were you already like a hipster already, and so that was just ingrained in you? Not that you're a hipster, but you know.
I definitely check some boxes.
Sure.
No, when I left home, I moved out as soon as it was kind of feasible.
Sure.
So like I was 18, and I wanted to move out earlier, but I didn't. I graduated. I went over the summer and just didn't do much. And then I left home and I lived in my car for a while. That was where I experienced the more alternative.
How long was that? How long were you living in your car?
No, I would couch surf as well, but
Sure, but
better part of like a year plus. Like,
I have a book idea called "How to Be a Successful Homeless" that I've really
people
been
didn't know.
percolating on for a while, but we can talk about that off air. But I really want, off mic. But I really want to I feel like I could write this. I want to try and be homeless for a year and write a book on how to be successful homeless.
You could do it.
My wife says no. Yeah, but yeah. Anyway,
I mean, you got to be minimal, but
I just think it requires a 24-hour gym membership, and that's your key.
Yep.
You got to have a place where you can clean up, because I think there's a very fine line between being fit and homeless. You ever notice that?
Yeah, I agree. They're very trim.
Yeah.
Most unless they're
You ever
like.
see a guy though?
addled.
You're like, you're just like, man, he's just really
Men?
fit,
A
and
lot.
then you're like, or is he homeless? I'm not sure.
Is he just very low body fat percentage?
Yeah, exactly. You're like, he's a runner. He's a runner's body.
Yeah.
You're like, well, he's just not eating.
Genetically blessed, but yeah. No, the when I was living in my car, I used to stop at. I was working, and so I would go to I was working at a hotel at the time in Tampa, and I would go into they had like a pool. There was a private pool, and I would go to the pool, and I would like jump into the pool, and then like go to the showers by the pool and like shower off there. And they had like they would wash your work clothes, and I would just have them wash all my clothes, and I'd just give them like $20. It's amazing what $20 will get you.
Not now.
No,
but then
it's
sure.
like 50.
Yeah.
that was 13, 14 years ago. So
Right. Yeah.
I'm getting old as well. But yeah, so
$20 is still a good tip, though, right?
Yeah.
Like if whatever the activity is, right? That you slide at 20, that has meaning.
Sliding 20
It did when I was with Bellman. That's how you held a car. You're like,
sliding
hey.
20 doesn't last me.
All right. Okay.
Even now. It does. Even though that like 20 doesn't mean what it does, it's like
Still,
it's
right?
20.
Something about the 20 spot.
Because you have to think about it though. It goes from like 1, 5, 10, 20, and it doesn't double to 40.
Exactly.
It goes to 50.
Exactly.
So 20,
That's
50 is a lot.
But you're putting out there at 50.
50 is weird actually because why not 100? Like 100 is. I mean, honestly though, but you already got.
Who
if
has
you're gonna
50s? Who
that's
carries
what I'm
50s?
saying.
You're not getting 50s from the ATM.
No one has 50s.
It's 20s, 100s.
Yeah, so
There's
no
one has 50s.
So that's the jump is that you might have a random 50, which I've tipped before, and you know, to be honest with you, if you have a 50 on you, very convenient, very very good tip when you go out and drink.
That's a solid, yeah.
Well, when you drink an excessive amount like I do and probably
solid
get hooked
drinking
up,
tip.
you're sitting there, your bill's $20 and it should have been 160, and you're like 50.
When you say an excessive amount, I'm fascinated by this. I'm sorry. I derailed your whole time. You were talking about living in a car, and you were.
Oh,
it was
okay.
really. It was. You were in a. It was going to be some poignant material there. But
No, it's okay. Let's keep going.
when you are,
It'll come up
when
later.
you're, when you're when you're talking about drinking for excessive amounts, I'm fascinated by how drunkenness manifests itself in different people. You have to be an expert in this, right? In seeing the various
Yes.
levels. I'm not familiar with all of them. I know mine. I know my wife's. I know other people's. What's you? How does drunkenness manifest itself in you? I know you get emotional. That's for damn sure.
You know that. Well, it depends though, because if I'm with people that I like know and trust,
Okay, sure, yeah, that's a different story,
it comes
right,
out
yeah.
emotional. It comes out as like genuine, like kind, emotional, like openness.
Yeah.
When it's around people I don't.
Soul bearing.
Yes, when it comes out, I still bare my soul around people that I don't know when I'm drunk, but
So you draw them in.
I roast them. I'm mean to people that are stupid when I'm drunk. That I perceive
yeah.
as stupid.
Yeah.
And it's I wish I could be that incisive and cutting
all the time.
in my normal life.
Sure.
I feel like as long as I could control it, it would be so beneficial.
That's Larry David. You want to be that?
Yeah, I'm not though. I'm so much nicer and more
Yeah.
like gregarious. But when I'm drinking, it's the filter's not there, but it's the thing is it's still fairly like coherent.
Sure.
People don't know when they'll be like, man, you were a dick last night, and like I was like, I don't even remember. I was drunk.
Wow.
I was like so drunk. I was like brownout drunk.
Right.
And they're like, what? You were still talking? I was like, that's the last thing to go. I'll be like not be able to walk, but I'll be like saying stupid fucking SAT words that I remembered.
Yeah, you're like, I'm still talking philosophy despite my level of drunkenness.
No, I mean, it's embarrassing when I listen to it. People are like, no, you were still, but of course they were drinking as well, not as much as me. But they'll consider that. Oh yeah, you were as drunk as we were. We weren't hammered. And I'm like, you have no idea. And it actually is really a struggle when I'm dating women. Because when they go out with me, they think that it's we're gonna go out and get drunk with this guy. Like let's go out and party. Let's go out and
how
drink.
you said dating women as opposed to
Dating men is so much easier.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's so much easier. You're like-minded.
Yeah.
There's all kinds
Same
of there's all
priorities.
kinds of clarity.
Yeah. For clarity all the time.
Yeah, constant clarity.
I mean, anyway, when I'm on dates with women, oftentimes it'll be like it's like I don't know what to call it exactly, but it's an event for them where they're gonna go out and go to a bunch. They know they're gonna go to a bunch of places, and because that's what I enjoy doing anyway. So I'm leading them there, but I'm gonna.
Do you want to be that guy? Is that you want to be the guy that's
No.
like you're like I know all the people.
Yes,
I can get
yes.
you in.
Oh, that, yes.
A certain part of that's appealing to women,
sure.
certainly.
This is ingrained from my grandfather. You know,
Yeah.
everybody in the town, everyone liked him. He was very well liked. I used to
It
drive
always
around
comes from,
as a small
this
child.
Is what where does it come from? I'm so fat.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Where does that come from? Like you know all the it spots. Like you know the people. Like
Yep.
it just comes so naturally.
My dad did it too, though. But my grandfather, which is probably why my mom found what she appreciated my dad. But my grandfather, I used to just drive around. He knew every person. Everybody liked him. Everyone in the town relied on him in some way. And, you know, the thing is, he didn't spend that much time with his family sometimes at home. But he was always out. He was always doing things. And everyone knew him. Like, oh, you're Fran's grandson. And literally in the small little town he was in. So, no, when I was little, I was like, my little marshmallow brain was absorbing and was like, this is what is good. He also was the oldest child like I was. And he also took care of his brothers. And so that was also like it's important to be well liked, and you need to know everybody, you need to know everything, you need to be charismatic, and I mean, as a child, there's a story that my grandmother who passed away, she used to like to talk about a lot, where this is like one of foundational memory. I barely remember, I remember it, but I was at some like diner, and I stood up on the table, and you know that when you're a kid, you'll imagine something running in the car next to you. You know, you're
Sure.
looking out the window.
Good.
So like I would imagine a dinosaur running next to us.
What kind of dinosaur?
It was a Tyrannosaurus Rex, obviously.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'd be specific. Come on, you know, you got a freaking brontosaurus there.
They can't run that fast.
Like,
It was a Velociraptor or Tyrannosaurus.
Yeah.
So I was like 4 or something or 5. I was very young, and my grandmother was asking me about the dinosaur that I saw because we had to drive. She lived in the country, so we had to drive pretty far to go see her. And I not only told her about it, I like stood up on the table, and all of her friends were like laughing and, oh my goodness. And I stood up on the table and told them about this dinosaur in graphic detail. And I mean, it wasn't like anything disturbing, but you know, I did that. And she would always tell this story over and over again. In fact, oh man, I don't tell people this story that often.
Well, this is what we're doing. We're just kind of pulling out material here. This is good.
When I was born, I wasn't
core.
crying. Is the story. And that's the story.
Don't all babies cry when they're born?
I'm
not trying to diminish your origin story.
Many do, especially when they cut the umbilical cord and they go, wah, wah. I was not doing that. Apparently, I was babbling. I was blah 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 blah, like just babbling, not crying.
Okay, out of the mouth of babes. I guess.
And the doctor was holding me, and he said this. He said, "So says everybody." So he had delivered 2 of my uncles, who were much older than me, obviously.
It's like family. It's a small town. What is it?
Syracuse, New York, St. Joseph's Hospital. It's the biggest hospital in the area. So yeah, he delivered 2 of my uncles. The ones from they were my dad's half brothers technically, but he delivered them, and so he knew my whole family before I was even considered. And so boom, it's this old ass 80-year-old doctor, and he's looking at me. It's like probably the last fucking baby in our lineage he's gonna deliver.
Yeah.
And he's like, and the baby, I'm just crying. He cuts the umbilical cord and he gives it to mom. Before he gives it to my mom, he looks at me. He's like, "Wow, like I've never seen a baby just keep talking instead of crying. He has something to tell the world." And like handed the baby to my mom.
And here you are.
And so those 2 stories were told to me over and over again, all the time. And
parents love to tell birth stories.
Oh, they do.
They just love to hone in on birth stories.
It influences you.
And
though.
have you ever met any human being where they're like, yeah, it was a pretty uneventful birth.
Well, that's what
nothing happened, dude. They came out, they were fine. Really nothing to tell. No one has that birth story.
Nobody.
Everyone has. I almost died. I had brain damage. I was resuscitated.
I have 2 brothers.
It was a breach. I'm a meconium birth. I shit, and then I ate it, and then I was born. Like everyone has some dramatic
Satan
story.
and like the baby just appeared.
Yeah.
My younger brother, I have 2 younger brothers. The middle one, who's right underneath me in age, he was huge. He was just a big, like 10.5 pound baby, like huge ass baby. And like it was a very tough birth for my mother, obviously. My mom's like 5'2". She's not a big woman. And like, it was like, I feel bad for her, to be honest with you. And then my brother has a big ass, thick head. When we would like be wrestling as kids, I'm 3 years older than him, you'd bump into his head and you're like, God, fuck, like it just hurt. Like, so I felt bad for my mom my whole life for that.
He's a big head.
Thick skull. But my youngest brother, had his umbilical cord wrapped around his neck.
Well, there's that too.
And
That's
so
the
there's
tale.
the three stories.
There you go.
That
There they are. Yeah, you got them. You know 'em all.
what's your
My birth? No, that's it. It's called a Macomian birth. I'm a miracle child.
Okay.
I shit before I came out. And
Very
so
good.
I was like consuming my own fecal matter or whatever. It's disgusting. Babies aren't supposed to survive. You're supposed to have brain damage. Somehow I survived. It's whatever. I don't know.
I mean, you have brain damage, but
Well, clearly there was.
But yeah, there's just some
suffering
lingering.
Now. I mean, clearly, yeah. I'm deformed and.
that's why the post-dumb clarity joke was so meaningful.
Yeah, of course.
It's intrinsic to your.
That's my whole life. My whole origin.
You started the world.
My whole origin was a fear dump.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to come out. I don't want to come out. I took a fear dump, and it was premature. And then I have all this clarity now.
Yes.
It was like a baptism of sorts. Yeah. Oh man, what a.
Really came full circle there.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow.
That's one for the Patreon, I guess.
That is the Patreon.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's weird. You know.
Okay, so I have one question. I think we should try to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask
we
you.
didn't really get into any.
We did not.
Meaningful philosophy.
We
stuff.
didn't. There will be.
You tease. You're like, I want to talk about like philosophy. I'm like, we are not qualified to talk about this.
No, I know, but
worldview, morality, meaning, origin.
So I have one question. What is the basis for morality outside the Bible, and how can we get people to agree on this?
Is this a real question?
Yes.
This is great.
All
right.
It's like the hardest last.
Oh,
question.
this is great. Is this? Did you have other questions for other people?
I have.
No, but
Yes,
we've
I have
established. I'm setting the lowest bar. We know this is the worst one. I know. I accept that. But my question is, did you go through questions with other people? Because I got virtually no questions.
You did get 3 of the
you just
7.
Slid them
I slid them in there. Like that's why I didn't introduce you fully.
Discreetly, you slid in
because I wanted to illuminate the crowd with who you were as we went on.
He was just nonchalant.
Because you're not just a lawyer.
You were so nonchalant about it.
Lawyer to me.
Look, I got all these questions. Now you're coming out. Last question, chalantly.
Chalant.
Here we go. All right. So what's the question?
What is the basis for morality outside of the Bible? So like what obviously like the Bible could be for people who are religious or non-religious could be a basis for morality, but not how do we find it, but like what basis is there outside of the Bible for morality, and how can we get people of all different backgrounds and beliefs to agree on this?
I think the question is a little narrow, okay? And let me maybe tweak it or maybe answer it, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say, because the Bible's a little narrow, right? We've got billions of people that are religious or theistic or believe in a creator of some kind that don't believe in the Bible necessarily, right? So I would say that the real answer would be
an organized religion.
Would be a moral lawgiver. That's my real answer. Is to say, if you posit there's a moral law, then you have to assume there's a moral lawgiver, right? That can establish good and evil, or at least the ability to differentiate between good and evil.
But do you think that there's intrinsic?
I would tweak the question to say, what's the basis of morality outside of God, outside of a moral lawgiver, right? Outside of a creator or God.
The reason I ask it is because I thank you for the reframing. I think that's correct. But the reason I ask it is because there seems to be an agreed upon morality that I'm not talking about the fringes.
Sure.
I'm talking about, like, let's say most people that you would run into, and pedophilia is an easy one, right? That like most people would, at least on the surface, would say that pedophilia is wrong, right? And it's the simplest way to put it. And I think that like there's certain things that, and I'm not trying to push a narrative in any type of way.
No,
I think that the theistic religions and Bibles are foundational and that they gave us the world that we have today. But there seems to be some kind of basis for morality outside of those things that are cross-cultural. Because there are disagreements.
I think it's tough though. So sure, I mean historically, you could argue that. You could argue that the government takes that place, right? So the two impositions of morality tend to be either faith or government, right? Now, I'm not a huge fan of government instituting morality, but I mean, we can argue. I mean, I like, and I don't mean argue as in conflict. I mean discuss, right? We can argue like all different sides of it. My real answer to your question, though, and I think this is important, right? Is I don't think there is one. Right. And that's just, I mean, that's tough, right? Because you get into that discussion, but I don't think there is a coherent basis for morality outside of a creator. I really don't. I know Sam Harris would certainly disagree with me, but like, and not that he would ever not that ever occasion would ever happen, but my point is
even if he heard this podcast.
But I don't. Yeah, even if he heard it, he'd be like, I don't fucking care. But so.
I like the post-clarity part.
I don't. Yeah, like that was good, and then they went downhill from there. Maybe they got me back with something else, but that was once they start trying to be like smart. Then
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think there is a basis for morality or truth outside of a creator. Like we live in is right. Your truth, my truth, right? That's big. It's for the last like 5-10 years, right? Or we've started to dip our toe into the your truth, my truth thing, which is fascinating because there is no your truth and my truth. There is only the truth. Right. But how do you get to the truth or a truth? And I think you have to have some absolutes that define that. But let's play the question out, right? What are the sources of morality outside of God, outside of a creator, right? Well, you have to have some common.
There's herd morality, right? Like for me, I just kind of
the greater good,
right?
That's the thing, right?
So
well, we believe in the greater good, and so what does that mean? Like, some people might say, whatever. I think what you're getting a lot right now in culture is like whatever drives you to happiness. Mm-hmm. But see, that's very self-involved. That's very, that. Narcissistic in a way, because happiness or pleasure becomes like the ultimate ethic. That's the supreme ethic. Is like, well, whatever you feel, you've got to. We can countless cliches, right? Follow your heart. Love is love. Like whatever you feel, do what makes you happy.
These are all
be
red
true.
flags.
Be true to yourself.
And
like
they're on the girl's wall.
pick a cliche. You know what I mean? But, it's like do what you feel. Like all those things. Follow your heart. Well, until your heart leads you to pedophilia. Right. Love is love, unless it's not. Unless it's I'm just leaning into your pedophilia example.
It's an easy one.
It's an easy one, right? We can all agree on that one, right? Yeah. I mean, we can't agree on much anymore, but like at least that one, mostly we're fine with.
There's always going to be someone who's contrary to everything.
Sure. Right. Well, but you can make the the argument. And most people would make the argument, or at least they would make hey, they're born that way.
Right.
What?
Well, that's an interesting thing though, because the born that way thing, that when I was growing up and my parents were very uncomfortable with homosexual people, which was, when I was growing up, I was like, why? I didn't understand it. And when gay marriage was, I was like, they should definitely be able to get married. And
sure,
it
agree.
Happened. And that was a progressive point at one point. But, now, I can say that I am definitely and happily,
you're happily gay now, so
happily gay. That's right. Like, I'm gay in everyday life, of course. It's just gay. Gay is a feeling. It's not a lifestyle. Right. But no, I can say that, it's confusing because being born something used to be the main point where it's like, look, gay people are born gay, but now, and like I said, like I was trying to say. I'm blissfully ignorant of the intricacies because it gets confusing to me.
Well, we've added a lot of letters to it now. So.
Right.
But it crumbles into itself.
It does.
Because I don't know what...
Do you know Matt
I don't know
Walsh?
what being... I'm aware. What is a woman?
Yeah,
I'm
the
aware.
What is a Woman
sure.
thing.
Have you seen it?
I have, and it's...
You're a subscriber to the Daily Wire?
I'm not a subscriber.
What a bigot you are.
I'm a tertiary
You're a terrible
observer.
human person. Yeah, I've seen it.
I saw it, and I thought...
It's okay.
It's not the craziest, but it's a good example about how if you're unwilling to have conversations and to challenge your own beliefs, especially when it comes to these things, that your arguments are built on nothing. It's ideology.
Yeah.
And I think...
This maybe we'll talk about it another time. We don't want to bore people, but I tell you, one of the areas where I feel like one of the things I got out of law school that I wish everyone could get is a lesson in the First Amendment. And I don't just mean in like free speech. First, I just mean in the history and how it came to be and the development of that over time within our society. But it goes right to what you're talking about here, right? It's having a conversation. Is that I really think that people don't have a clear understanding that the point of the First Amendment is to invite dispute.
Right.
And that is so crucial, not because you're creating conflict or creating chaos, but because the only way to hone your beliefs is to challenge them.
Right.
And the only way to do that is to invite dispute. And there's a huge theme that runs throughout the course of First Amendment case law, which is the marketplace of ideas. Some people call it the arena of ideas, right? And in the arena of ideas, or the marketplace of ideas, only the weakest are afraid of open dialogue or of open discourse, right? And the idea that just because something might cause offense or you may think it's wrong or bad or whatever the case may be, all the more reason to let it in, right? We're not trying to like constrict offensive speech. But this goes into the like open dialogue, and people are so afraid to have dialogue that is contradictory to, I mean, your question, right? Where does morality come from? I could sit here and be like, I don't think no, there is no morality outside of God. Or we could explore it and say, well, most people don't go walking around raping and murdering. So we must have some collective idea of what's for the greater good, right?
Right.
And that must come from somewhere because not everybody believes in God, right? But most people abide by these kind of strictures. Now, there is still a real influence of the Judeo-Christian ethic.
Oh, for sure. I think it might be a chicken versus egg type thing where it's like, if you really want to zoom way out, which is usually convenient for your own argument when you zoom way out.
Sure, yeah.
But, I think that...
Big picture.
Right. Let's zoom back out for my point. But I think that, when you zoom way out like that and you say, okay, so and God and the Bible have not been around forever, and people weren't always murdering and killing each other because we wouldn't exist. Now, maybe there was more, but it doesn't matter. Like, if it was pure anarchy and chaos, we wouldn't have civilized society. And you could say that there's a chaos, that there's order put to the chaos with religions, which there's a fair argument for that. But I think what you're saying is, what you were saying is like, that there's some kind of moral line where that things are intrinsically bad or good, like at a base level, like killing somebody. Like maybe you don't feel personally bad, but that it's not a net positive, right? Like to kill somebody.
Right, because
if you're in a group,
it's not part of the great. It doesn't bring you happiness. It doesn't bring greater civil,
the people that are around you, even if you're a caveman, the people around you are fearful of you, right? Like instead of being like cheering you on,
that goes back to the happiness point, right? It's like, okay, so what?
The happiness is that this is such a fake love drug that is pumped into everyone's head that you have to be happy. Happiness makes you dull and weak, and in fact, like what you're saying, like